Hello and welcome to One Cool Thing. I'm Alex Cologne and I'm here with Jim Fisher. And today we're talking about the DJI Mini 3 Pro. Now, as you can see, Jim is out in the field. We're going to demonstrate some drone action for you live in the air. But before we get to that, we should first give you a little bit of a rundown on the Mini 3 Pro. It starts at $669. It is one of DJI's smaller drones. It's not their smallest. However, in its base configuration, it is small enough that it doesn't require registration with the FAA. Without spoiling too much, this is one of our favorite new drones for pretty much most new drone flyers. And now I'll kick it over to you, Jim. You want to give a general overview of the Mini 3 Pro?
Sure. The Mini 3 Pro follows last year's Mini 2, which was a $449 starter drone. This one's a little more upmarket, obviously. It adds about the same size. It's like a couple tenths of an inch bigger on each edge, but still with the default battery, which gets you 34 minutes of runtime. That's gives you under the 249 gram weight limit. In the US, that means you won't have to pay a $5 fee to fly it. In other regions like Canada, Europe, the restrictions are a little more stringent, so the 249 gram is a little bit more important. There's also an extended life battery available as an option, which gets you up to 47 minutes and pushes the drone's weight up to like 290 grams. And if you're in the US, I really recommend getting that and paying the $5 because the extra flight time is worth it. But as far as the drone itself, it takes the basic folding tiny mini airframe. It puts a newer camera in there. It does both horizontal, normal video, as I like to call it, and vertical video for you TikTokers. So the gimbal's got the 90-degree tilt, plus it tilts up for low angle shots up to about 60 degrees, which most drone cameras don't do. For video specs, 4K up to 60 FPS. There's a flat decine-alike profile for folks who want a color grade, but it is an 8-bit profile. You have 3-way obstacle avoidance, so it will fly right around things and not crash into them, but it doesn't have sideways or upward sensors or rear, so it's just frontward, forward, rear from these, and then downward. And like you said, $669 that comes with no remote, just the drone and the battery. And that configuration is for folks who already may have the DJI RC1N, or N1, I'm sorry, RC-N1, which is the remote that ships with the Mavic 2 Air, the Mini 2, and the Mavic Air, or the DJI Air 2S drone. So if you already have one of these, you don't have to spend the extra money. And then if you don't have a remote, you can buy it with this one for $759. And DJI also has a newer remote, which comes with a built-in screen. This is the DJI RC, and that configuration is $909 with the drone. And I think that covers the kits. There are a couple extra battery kits available. There's the Fly More kit, which comes with the two extra 249 gram batteries and a multi-battery charger, which I'll just scoop down here and grab off the ground. Apologies. And a little three-way charger. It's a nice accessory. That's $189 for the standard batteries. But if you want to buy this with the extended life battery, which gets you up to 47 minutes of runtime, slightly heavier. They don't have the 249 gram marking on them. That's the Fly More Plus kit, I believe. It's got a weird name with a plus in it in a weird place. And that's $249. And I think that covers all the accessories. There's some neutral density filters available and some other things as well.
That does cover all the accessories. I'm really impressed that you remembered all of that. I have the information right in front of me, and I don't think I would have gotten that as smoothly as you did.
I just wrote the review. It's very helpful. For stills, it's a quad bear sensor. So it's a 48 megapixel sensor, but really you want to shoot it at 12 megapixels, which is your default for better quality images. The 48 meg doesn't get you anything but larger files. But it's used for video in that it's got a 2x digital zoom. It's pretty decent quality.
Now, one thing I will go back to for a moment on those remotes, the first remote that you showed us, the one that you can buy bundled with the drone for $759.
Yes.
I will point out that with this remote, you need to use your smartphone.
Yep, it's got a clip here for it. Your iPhone plugs right in, the iPhone or Android plugs right in. It's got a little snug cable that stows in the remote and gives you either Lightning, micro, or USB-C connections. All three are included.
Right. And so then the difference with the other remote is that with the built-in screen, you don't need to also use your phone with it.
Right. And if you're someone who may not have a great smartphone, doesn't have a modern one, or is just not a smartphone person, and I have had readers email me and say, I want to buy a drone, but I don't have a smartphone. What do I do? Up until now, DJI has sold like the DJI RC Pro, which is a little nicer version of this with a brighter screen. That's $1,200. This you can get with the drone for around $900. They're not selling it separately right now, so I don't have a separate price. The only thing I don't like about this is the screen itself is 700 nits, which is a little dimmer than my iPhone 13. So I had a hard time on days like this when I got the sun right down on me. If I didn't get into shade, I couldn't really see the screen, which is not a great experience.
Yeah, like you said, nits, that refers to the screen brightness. And I believe the iPhone brightness is 1,000+ nits.
Yeah, a display. We linked to the DisplayMate test in our full written review of the Mini Pro, and the iPhone 13 Pro Max has like a 1,200 up to 1,200 screen brightness, which is for days like this really helpful.
Right. So let's talk about image quality. How do you feel about stills and video from the Mini 3?
The stills are definitely good smartphone quality. It's an f1.7 lens, and it can be focused. So you can actually, if I was close to it and it was flying, it can get me a little bit of a shallow defocused background, which is nice. The absolute sharpness seemed a little bit behind the Air 2 and even the Mini, which use much more basic cameras with narrower apertures. The other plus here is if you are flying in dim light or at night, you're going to get a better quality low light image. But if you're on bright days like today, you'll want to add a neutral density filter, and the lens just twists right off. The lens cover just twists right off, and you can put the neutral density filters onto the lens. So yeah, that's for image quality. I would say stick to the 12 megapixel files. If you're interested in editing photos, you can use the raw DNG format. That lets you go into Lightroom and change color around, adjust exposure, do things like that.
Now, we spoke about FAA registration. Let's talk a little bit more, though. I think it's important to note that, as we mentioned, in its base configuration, the drone comes light enough that it doesn't require registration. However, we do highly recommend that you buy, as you were saying, the Fly More Plus battery.
Yeah, especially for US customers where the restrictions are not as strict as they are in some other regions. These extra batteries, they don't weigh that much more. They don't have the 249-gram logo on them, so you can tell the difference by sight. And they get you like an extra 12 minutes of airtime, which to me is much more important for safety than it being just a few grams heavier.
And I mean, honestly, just pay the $5, register with the FAA. It's quick and easy.
It's one you got to take an online course anyway. It's the trust test. It's like one of those corporate security trainings where you can't really fail. It takes 5 minutes. It's very basic, very simple. If you have any sort of common sense, you can pass it. So I recommend doing that and paying the fee. And I should note, it's the $5 fee is per user, not per drone. So if you have 10 drones, that's $5. You get one FAA number. You stick the sticker on all your drones, and you have a good time.
Okay, finally, let's talk about safety features here. There are, a number of built-in features so that you will hopefully not lose the drone, crash it into anything. You want to tell us about those?
Sure. It's got the obstacle avoidance, which we touched on already, and it's got APAS, the Advanced Pilot Assist System, which basically means the drone, if you're just flying it straight ahead, will navigate right around obstacles. It's pretty neat. I've flown it right at my face, and it missed me. So that's a big plus versus a drone that doesn't have obstacle avoidance, where you fly it right at your face and it's going to hit you. It also has GPS, so positioning. I did note on this drone in particular, it takes a little while to lock on, slower than most DJIs I've used, about 40 seconds to a minute between powering on and running, getting the GPS lock for safe flight. But if you are flying and it loses signal with remote control, the GPS knows where you took off and brings the drone right back to home automatically. There's also a Find My Drone feature, which records its last known position if you crash it or have to land it in an emergency. And you've got a really good app and battery gauge on the app that gives you an indication of how much time you have left in the air, which is very, very important.
Okay, I think that's a pretty good overview of everything, that you should know about the Mini 3. Now, can we take it up into the air? Is that possible from where you are?
I mean, I'm outside for a reason. So we're gonna unfold it. It unfolds very easily. You just pull it out every strut, and then you got a drone. I'm gonna set it down on the ground. I'm gonna pop out of frame here. All right. And I have a wired microphone, so I need to be careful not to have it take off into that. So I'm gonna power up the drone. And like we said, we're gonna wait a little while here to get it, to get it actually going. I got the remote. I'm using the built-in screen remote just because I don't want to fiddle with my phone right now. And it also takes a little while to power up. It's running a version of Android. It's got Wi-Fi built in. I'm close to my house right now and all my Wi-Fi networks, so I should get live maps here. If you're not anywhere near Wi-Fi and you want to get a map view on this built-in screen remote, you'll want to tether it to your phone's Wi-Fi hotspot, and then it can pull off the maps in real time. That way you can at least keep your phone in your pocket. All right, GPS signal weak. So we'll see how long this takes here where I can take off safely. We got 12 satellites right now. That locked on in that amount of time from when I turned the drone on. So that was a little bit quicker than I've been dealing with.
Yeah, I think you noted there were sometimes delays of up to 40 seconds in your tests.
Yes, 40 seconds is what I timed it at one time. And we're going to take off right now.
All right, this is awesome.
Okay, now I'm behind the camera and you can hear these beeping. That's letting me know that I've got obstacles, and it's seeing both me and the camera and the drone right now. And we can just zip it around here, turn it on its axis. And let me just see if I can tilt the camera here to get a better view for our readers and viewers. We're just going to show it through the obstacle avoidance right here. I'm going to try to fly it right into my deck and see what happens. See, it just goes right over, and it's going over my garage. It maps the space all on its own.
That is really cool. Is it possible for us to bring it closer to the camera at all?
Well, let me see how, I got a wide lens on here. This is about as close as I'm going to be able to get to the camera unless I fly it sideways. Whoop. Well, that's not safe.
Yeah. Now, I will note here, Jim has flown many drones in his time testing them at PC Mag. So I would not, if this is your first drone, I wouldn't automatically buy it and try to fly it toward a camera.
Yeah, especially there are no sideways obstacle sensors. So what I'm doing now is trying to fly it sideways toward me so it doesn't trigger the obstacles. But, you know, that's not the easiest thing to do.
All right. Let's not, hurt yourself or the computer.
Yeah, I might actually be able to just do it here, and instead of changing the drone, I can change the camera to do a tighter view. I've changed my camera here to Super 35 instead of full frame, so I've changed my angle of view of my lens. This is a little bit better view of the drone here.
Oh,
how's
yeah, that's
that?
great.
All right,
that's perfect. All right, so there you have it. This is the DJI Mini 3 Pro. It starts at $669. The configurations go up from there depending on what kind of remote you want. We do recommend that you buy the Fly More Plus kit, which gives you the extended runtime battery. That will require you to register with the FAA. It's only $5. And we gave this drone 4 stars and an Editor's Choice Award. And we think that this is really the best drone for most people right now. Jim, you want to add anything to that?
all right, I just landed it just so I can come back here on camera and say hello, goodbye to everybody. Now I've got to dip down because of my tighter frame, but here's the Mini 3 Pro.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning into One Cool Thing, and we will see you again next time.